Hey, you guys, this is Samuel Lake with JVS Media Production here at TIFF. This is the 9th day for me. It's insane, but the honor talking to this man right here, I'm very excited to talk about.
Thank you, man.
Samuel.
Thank you, Samuel.
TIMO, I got a chance to see the movie already. I'm just going to let you know that.
Oh,
I saw it,
thank you.
A few days back, and it blew me away, and I was immediately like, I have to talk to him.
Oh,
so
geez.
That's part of the reason why I'm here. But go ahead and getting right to the point. As far as the film itself, where did this start conceptually? Like, where did you build upon it, and then on top of what were the process to get it made, even for distribution?
Right. So basically, like I've made 2 films. I mean, like 3 action films prior to this one, and I have a pretty close relationship with like Iko Weiss and Joe Taslim, who's both in the Night Comes For Us. And I always felt like, the Night Comes For Us was, it's an achievement of itself. Like, I mean, I managed to do something, like that sort of like leaves a mark. I don't know how big it is, but like I think there is a mark to be made with Night Comes For Us. But at the same time, I can't help it but like thinking, well, I made that film as a hardcore action martial arts film, but obviously a lot of things works there because I am casting 2 very sort of capable martial artists, to make the film. So in a sense, it becomes like a personal challenge for me, where I've told myself creatively I should be able to make a martial art action film even without casting like martial artists, even without casting people who are very athletic and good at like what they do, like kicking ass. So it becomes a personal sort of like mission for me to sort of like, hey, what if I make a film, like a hardcore noir action film, casting like not only women, but like also women who has never done action or martial arts film before. They never have done it.
Wow.
And I've always loved the whole sort of like the alternative take for films like La Femme Nikita, for example, or Leon the Professional.
Oh, classic.
I always love that sort of like little sort of like drama that happens in a bigger sort of like world, and I always want to make a film about like an assassin who happens to be a teenager. So I started to develop a story where the main sort of like catharsis is a master and student relationship. And from then on, like I decided like, well, the drama should be between a student who believes this is not what she's destined to be, and a master who has long forgotten her humanity and is in the process of trying to find it again, even without her realizing it. And so I started writing it, and while I was writing it, like I've watched this small indie Indonesian film, a very good one called Like and Share, which is about like a teenage coming of age film. And I saw Aurora there. Aurora is the who plays 13.
She's amazing.
She's amazing, and I was like, wow, I've never seen someone who's so young yet carry so much like burden in her shoulder, who seems to be rebellious, but at the same time also keeping this specific type of sadness.
Yeah.
So I literally called her like the next day, and we meet 3 days later, and the rest is history. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, I mean that's a great segue, because I was going to talk about Aurora and Hana.
Yep.
Cool. I think the thing about it is their action. It feels like they've been done it all their life, which is crazy because they're just so on it, and you capture them amazingly. But I think that their emotional vulnerability, I think where you capitalize on it. Because there are 2 specific characters when you think about the world building of it, and that's Jiki and Moji. And
oh man, amazing that you remember the names.
They're
cool.
Such grounded pieces of the world, but they make out a big part of 13's humanity. Right. But that's the other side of the coin for 13, for Hannah's character. And I mean, I think that you do something very special here in the sense that I am attached to them emotionally no matter what's going on. No matter even if there's a tragic moment that happens or there's an action moment that happens, I'm always emoting and connecting to them.
Right. Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
And I speak towards that a little bit.
Well, I think that's very important. Like you saying that makes me feel like I have achieved something else. Here's the thing, like I don't think I'm too. Look, I'm not saying like I'm the best when it comes to making action. As a matter of fact, I still feel like I need to learn more.
Okay.
At the same time, I'm less interested in making a gruesome, hardcore action film, and more am interested in making a film about a human connection, like the complexity of human connection, you know.
Yeah.
And I think often you find the best human connection is within the constraints of this very marginalized or very sort of unorthodox characters, right? And you know, like when you see characters like Jackie, Monji, or you know, like the characters around them, like they are essentially marginalized characters, right?
Yeah.
And I think that sort of like feels very befitting with the heart of the story, which is essentially a character who's trying to find a human connection. And I think therefore it's never become a question of like, why does this kid Monji matter so much for 13, you know? It's more about like she's been alone and without identity for most of her life, right? She is sort of like washed out of her past, so she is pretty much a blank slate, but inside of her heart she knows that there's something out there that she needs to hold on to, you know. And when she sees Monji, she sees that as a reflection of herself, you know. Like, so it's not necessarily like, oh, you met this kid and then suddenly they connect very well and like they become like the best of friends. They only share like a day and a half at most.
It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. They share like, yeah, and that's it. Like, but like it's this thing where she's holding on to her humanity. Like, I think the whole point is like, what if a character who's so good and so skilled at killing, but her instinct is telling her that like she's not that, you know?
Yeah.
It's and at the same time you have an archetype of what she will become if she's letting go of her humanity in the character Umbra, you know, who has pretty much stripped all her sort of like all her sort of like sentimentality and humanity. But like even with her character, it's still there some way deep there, and she just doesn't realize it.
You can
know?
see glimmers of it.
Yeah.
That's a great segue because there's a scene, and I'm not going to spoil it. It takes place at a graveyard, and
Right.
you know, 13 is telling Moji to do something,
Right.
and
Yep.
the way you shoot it, and it's just such an important thing. But the fact that she had enough wherewithal to tell him to do that, it showed a lot from humanity standpoint. But the segue really is about like where you're shooting, like it's shooting locations, and how difficult was it for you to deal with COVID, deal with the writer strikes, and get some of these amazing shots in all these different locations. Tell me a little bit about that.
I don't have problem with writer strikes because I write it by myself. So you know, like, but like, well, I like that you mentioned about that grave scene because it's one of my favorite scenes, and it also, you know, we're obviously a bit of a spoiler, but like that's one way to show that her character is so close and familiar with death without her even realizing it, you know. And I think that's a very sort of like a part of her identity in a way without she doesn't even know that.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to the difficulty of like shooting in locations, one thing that is the bigger challenge technically is like, since the title is The Shadow Strays, we can't really shoot in daytimes, right? Because shadow is all about like what's hidden, what's lurking. You can't have this sort of like ninja-esque character and having them fighting in daytime sunny beach, you know, like
Right.
so everything aesthetically we have to sort of like make a sort of like almost like this rule where no, it has to happen at night. Like these characters live by the night, you know, like, and honestly, you will never know how hellish it is until you start shooting a major sort of like massacre involving cars and like legions of like goons inside a very dusty warehouse at 10 p.m. to like 5 a.m. at night, you know. That's like another level of it's so close to the point where we just sometimes we just say, you know what, maybe we should simplify this, maybe we should just shorten our days here. But like honestly, weirdly enough, the thing that keeps us from going is just Aurora as the lead. It's weird because like she's in a way the youngest cast and well, one of the youngest cast and also the youngest in the cast and crew sort of like you know, family that we have. So by the time we are already tired and we are ready to like, you know what, maybe we should just cut this part and cut this part. Like she's like, come on, let's do it, guys, I'm ready. You know, like she is incredible in the sense that you never seen that much energy from someone. Because here's the thing, I shot with Iko, I shot with Joe, and they're all like super tough guys. But you know, like let's not forget that like age is also catching up with them. Like, you know, like they are in their 40s now.
Yeah.
So let's say if I go after like, let's say 9th or like 10th takes, you definitely see that, you know, the body is starting to give up, like slowing down. But like with Aurora, it's weird because she will do it pretty okay in the first time, better on the second time. But let's say if I go for the like 12th time, she becomes like nearly indestructible. So it's weird, like the more she do it, the more she becomes better. It's like she just becomes more energized, like she's just constantly pumping. And like even between the shots, like, Aurora, like let me change lens. And she's like, okay. And she just start doing push-ups, like, so it's just weird. And it's never failed to amaze me that she didn't have any training and and martial art background at all. As a matter of fact, funnily enough, after we shot this film, she went to take her license as a yoga instructor. So that's kind of like really weird. Like she's now an officially like a certifiable like yoga instructor.
That's hilarious. I did want to ask about like the training. I know that Muhammad was, I guess, one of the stunt coordinators.
Irfan, yeah, Muhammad Irfan, yeah.
But as far as how long did it take for their training? How long did it take for shooting, and what did that entail? Because that's a lot. I mean, it's not just martial arts training. They're doing totally different like weaponry and
exactly.
guns and
I mean, like the choice of like using swords and like, you know, like sharp sort of like bladed sort of weapons is a conscious choice of mine, just because I feel I've already done my sort of like very grounded and sort of like ground and pound fists and kicks flying in Nikon Suras, you know. And I think there's a certain elegance that carries with like bladed weapons, you know. So that's definitely a very sort of like initial choice that I made. But like that also lends to more time needed for our cast to master those weapons, to be very comfortable with it. So I think for 3.5 months, Aurora and pretty much more Aurora than Hana, I guess, like because like she has more fighting to do. I remember her schedule is 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. She goes to the gym for physical conditioning. And then 9:30 to 2 or 3 p.m. she goes for the choreography learning. And then from 3:30 to like 7 p.m. she goes for the reading. And that goes on for 3 months. Like it's weird, it's crazy. Like you literally see her body transform in real time. Because I remember when she came, like, hey Aurora, can you show me like push-ups? Like she's like, oh, like, you know, like, you know. And then by the end of it, she's just like, it's incredible. Like, I mean, honestly, if any, like, I think like it's weird. Like I am excited for this film, but like I'm also excited for the fact that these two girls managed to achieve so much and like they are pretty much the backbone and the heart of the film, you know.
Yeah. The last thing I was kind of give you kudos on is I know you're tied to Nobody 2.
Yes. Yeah.
I know that you're tied to the Last Train of Busan remake in New York. But I haven't seen this film. I dare I say I want to see more.
Thank
And
you, thank you.
I mean, it's more of a question of would you be willing to continue this world building?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, here's the thing. Like I mean, like you seen like how it ends, you know, like, and without spoiling anything, like I always intend this to be. I often treat my stories and my characters the way I treat a sandbox filled with like this micro, like mini lives, you know. And as weird and as childish as it sounds, like I often sort of like approach my creativity in storytelling like GTA games, because I think GTA is very underrated in terms of how they tell their stories within the game itself. You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty much a sandbox filled with like, you know, like scums and criminals and weird characters, but they all have this strangely, sometimes, often touching backstories, you know, like touching mini stories, and I love that idea. I've been applying that since the Nicoms Ross, and I'm trying to do the same with this one, just because we learn so little about who these shadows are. You know, like we learn so little about like what are the background of the organization, what drives them, and we kind of tease that a little bit in the end. You know, like so hopefully, you know, like the interest is big enough so that I can sort of. I'm very keen to make a sequel for this film. Yeah.
I hope so.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Samuel.
Nice to
That's
meet you.